Hello, I'm Dr. Nirupa, obstetrician and gynecologist at Akkineni Hospitals. Hope you're safe and well. Today, I'll be sharing some important information. Stay tuned and take notes.
Welcome to The Explainer. Look, today we're tackling something that, let's be honest, can cause a lot of anxiety, and we're going to turn it into something entirely different, an empowering playbook. If you've ever felt completely overwhelmed by medical jargon or found yourself a bit nervous right before an annual checkup, you are definitely in the right place. Our goal today is to translate all those complex clinical guidelines into clear, actionable knowledge so you can walk into your next appointment with total confidence. We're going straight to the sources, the actual clinical guides, to break down exactly how this life-saving tool works without the scary medical lecture. Okay, let's dive into this. Today we're going to demystify the whole process using 4 highly logical pillars. First, how mammograms actually work. Second, the breast density dilemma. Third, guidelines and screening types. And finally, decoding your BI-RADS results. All right, pillar number 1, how mammograms actually work and the technology behind the scan. So fundamentally, a mammogram is just a highly specialized X-ray of the breast tissue. And honestly, according to the clinical data, it's the most widely validated screening tool we literally have in our medical arsenal. Now, if you've ever had one, you definitely know about the much-dreaded compression plates, right? But here's the thing. They're actually a brilliant piece of design. By compressing the tissue between these plates, the overall thickness is reduced. And why does that matter? Well, a thinner surface area actually lowers the amount of scatter radiation, meaning you receive a lower radiation dose overall. Plus, it drastically improves the image resolution, which lets radiologists spot incredibly subtle densities that would otherwise just be a blur. And this brilliantly illustrates the next major leap in the tech, digital breast tomosynthesis, or as it's more commonly known, 3D mammography. While your standard 2D digital scans are great, 3D mammography takes multiple low-dose images from a bunch of different angles. Then a computer reconstructs them into a super detailed 3D dataset. Think of it like looking at a flat photograph of a book versus actually being able to flip through its individual pages. It's a massive leap forward because it significantly boosts cancer detection rates, especially in dense breasts, while simultaneously cutting down on those stressful false positive recalls. So what exactly is the radiologist hunting for in all these high-resolution images? They're kind of playing detective, looking for a few specific clues. They're searching for masses. Those are discrete densities with defined borders, and tiny calcium deposits called microcalcifications. The specific shape and morphology of these little deposits are absolutely crucial for figuring out the probability of malignancy. They're also keeping an eye out for architectural distortion, which is basically a subtle pulling or disruption of the normal tissue structure, as well as any asymmetric densities between the two breasts. Moving right along to pillar number 2, the breast density dilemma, or understanding the camouflage effect. You know, understanding your own breast density is a totally critical piece of this puzzle, but it is so often misunderstood or just completely overlooked. So I've got to pose this question directly to you. Why does breast density actually matter so much in a clinical setting? Well, it all comes down to what we call the camouflage effect. On a mammogram, fatty tissue appears dark, but fibroglandular tissue, the stuff that actually makes breasts dense, appears white. Here's the catch, though. Cancers also appear white on a mammogram. Since both dense tissue and tumors share the exact same color on the scan, high breast density can literally hide tumors. It's exactly like trying to spot a snowball in a blizzard. Because of this camouflage effect, having dense breasts inherently lowers the overall sensitivity of the scan. To standardize all this, radiologists use the BI-RADS density scale, which goes from A to D. Category A means the breast is almost entirely fatty, making the scan super easy to read. Category B means there are scattered areas of dense tissue. Category C is what we call heterogeneously dense, and Category D means they are extremely dense. Knowing this scale is a real game changer because it lets you confidently decode this specific part of your medical report as soon as it's handed to you. And here is exactly why this matters directly to you. Women whose reports fall into categories C or D actually face a higher baseline risk for breast cancer. When you compound that with the lower scan sensitivity we just talked about, well, it changes the whole clinical approach. If you're in category C or D, this knowledge empowers you to discuss supplemental screening with your doctor. We're talking about things like an ultrasound or an MRI, tools that can basically see right through the dense tissue that standard X-rays can't. All right, that brings us to pillar 3, guidelines and screening types, knowing when and how. So the crucial point is the sheer statistical power of getting screened. Look at the numbers. Randomized trials have consistently shown that routine mammographic screening reduces breast cancer mortality by an incredible 20 to 30% in screened populations compared to unscreened ones. That is a massive, life-saving advantage right there. And here's another huge impact number for you: 1 to 3 years. The true superpower of mammography is its ability to spot cancers a full 1 to 3 years before they even become physically palpable to you or your doctor. I mean, by the time a lump can actually be felt, it's often been growing for quite some time. A mammogram intercepts it way before that ever happens. Now, when you do go in, you need to know exactly what kind of appointment you're walking into because there are two distinct types. First, there's a screening mammography. That's for when you have absolutely no symptoms, you're just going in for your routine preventative checkup. On the flip side, a diagnostic mammography is a much more targeted evaluation. This is what they use if you have a specific symptom, like a palpable lump or discharge, or if something abnormal was flagged during your routine screening. Diagnostic scans are a bit more involved. They usually require extra imaging angles, magnification views, and a lot of times an accompanying ultrasound. So, when are you actually supposed to start? Let's map out the timeline based on India's specific guidelines from the ICMR and FOGC. Starting at age 20, the focus is really on breast self-awareness and getting an annual clinical exam by a doctor. Now, if you're high risk, say you have a BRCA mutation or strong family history, supplemental MRI screening is actually recommended starting at age 30, or 10 years before the youngest affected family member was diagnosed. For average risk women, routine mammographic screening should officially kick off at age 40. Take a second to mentally place yourself on this timeline. Of course, it's absolutely vital we transparently discuss the clinical benefit-harm balance here. The data tells us that screening 10,000 women annually over a decade prevents 3 to 4 breast cancer deaths. But alongside that amazing benefit, it also generates roughly 60 to 70 false positive recalls. I really want to emphasize this so you don't panic. A recall does not mean you have cancer. False positives are a fully known, totally expected part of the whole process. It usually just means they need a few extra images or maybe a benign biopsy just to be absolutely certain. Which leads us to our final pillar: decoding your BI-RADS results and actually reading your report. Okay, so the scan is done, the waiting is finally over, and you've got the clinical report right in your hands. Let's completely remove the anxiety from this moment. Now, what's really interesting about this slide is how the medical field uses this beautifully systematic scoring system from 0 to 5. There are literally 0 mysteries left for you to guess at. If you see a 0, it just means incomplete. They need a few more images, no big deal. Scores of 1 and 2, those are negative or benign, meaning you just stick to your routine screenings. A score of 3 means it's probably benign, but they'll want to do a short interval follow-up, usually in about 6 months, just to be super safe. And if you see a 4 or a 5, that means the finding is suspicious, and a biopsy is recommended to investigate what's going on. The truly great news here is that modern medical facilities operate using this exact standardized workflow. Providers like Akkineni Hospitals utilize both 2D and 3D tomosynthesis, combined seamlessly with this clear BI-RADS reporting. It's a structure that ensures no matter what your score turns out to be, your next steps are immediate and crystal clear. It offers seamless biopsy access if a category 4 or 5 pops up. Basically, you are never left in the dark wondering what happens next. So, we've covered the technology, the tricky camouflage of dense tissue, the timelines, and exactly how to read your own results. The clinical playbook is officially in your hands. Now that you hold it, the only question left is, how will you use this knowledge to confidently take control of your proactive health journey at your next appointment? Thanks for joining me on this explainer, and hey, stay curious.